Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 64. I'm Jenny, and I help multi-passionate creatives like you kick overwhelm to the curb and fit all of your shiny objects into a life and business you love. I am really looking forward to today's interview because we are speaking with Dai Manuel, who is an award-winning digital thought leader and author, TEDx speaker, former COO of a multi-million dollar retail company, and a sought-after lifestyle mentor and executive performance coach. And I love that this bio makes no mention about fitness because that's what all the magazine covers on the media section of his website are about. Personally, this list of accomplishments sounds exhausting to me, and I'm speaking as a squirrel-brained everything enthusiast here. So I am dying to dig into how Dai keeps his health and happiness a priority while he takes on the world like this. Shall we find out?
Awesome.
Hey there, Dai. How are you today?
Fantastic.
Awesome.
It's just a beautiful day. I mean, it's overcast here in Vancouver, but you know what? It's all good because it's bright. And it's just another great day to just be up and off, just doing what I do. So, I mean, how about you though?
I'm good. It's a little hot here. I live in Palm Desert in California.
Oh, yeah.
And
Nice.
come this time of year, it starts to get into like 115 I went out at 7:30 this morning and I was like, that's the last time I'm going to go out today.
Well, that's the desert for you, right?
Yeah, but at least there's
Man.
sunshine all the time. And I consider that a blessing. Definitely.
So cool. My wife's father, my father-in-law, he lives in Palm Springs.
Okay. So you're familiar then.
Yeah, we don't normally visit during the summer months, but we hear about his golf. Like he has to get out either early morning or really late in the day, but you don't go out during the midday.
Yeah, I mean, you can get really cheap golf this time of year, but you have to be a total glutton for punishment.
I like fair weather golfing, but not that much, So
yeah. I hear you. My best friend comes out specifically to golf in the summertime and just play the courses for like $18, and everyone thinks he's completely insane.
That's good though. I mean, hey, I bet he sweats a few pounds off. So,
oh, absolutely. I'm sure that it has that added benefit.
Yeah,
Definitely.
Yeah. Very cool.
Well, so you have your hands in so many different cookie jars. I'm almost at a loss for where to start, but you say that your passion is to engage and challenge people to live healthier, more active lifestyles. So why don't we begin there?
Cool.
You weren't always in peak physical condition like you are now. So tell us your journey from then to now.
Wow. Geez, let's just go right back, way back, because I can totally date myself now. I'm on my 45th lap around the sun. And, in my 45 years, obviously I had lots of experiences and I'll tell you right now, made a lot of mistakes, but I like to think I'm wiser for them. So I've learned, well, my kids will argue differently probably, but we'll leave that for another conversation. So, if I go way back and a lot of people that meet me, knowing that I have this passion for helping others with just really being completely accountable to themselves when it comes to their health. That can be mental health, spiritual health, physical health, of course, but also psychological health, and more importantly, even financial health. But really that holistic approach that we have to be accountable to our own actions, because it's ultimately what we do or don't do that has a very severe effect on all those aspects I just named. So if I go back though, people meet me and they find out I'm into this space and I've been doing it a long time. They just presume that I've always been this way. And so I appreciate you asking the question because from age 9 to 14, I was not living a very healthy lifestyle. And, there's a number of things that I could attribute to why I started down that path of making less healthy choices for myself. But ultimately I was 9 years old. Parents went through a separation, then a divorce. My world was kind of rocked, to date myself, as I just shared with you. This is like 30 years ago. Right. And, there's one other kid in my whole school that has his original parents not together. So it's not like today, right? Like today, it's like, more relationships break up than stay together, which is an whole another thing to observe in itself. But, let's just say it this way. I found my happy space every day in what I would eat. And it was often not like, oh, I'm going to have more salad.
No, that is not comfort food.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't. And, it was eating a lot of food that was very rich in calories, but very poor in nutrition value. And so, the problem with that is you never really feel satiated. So you always want more. And it's this energy roller coaster you get on. And I was definitely on it. And on top of that, I found dopamine every day in video games and movies, not through doing physical activities or even things that would have been more holistically healthy for me. But so that was it, and I did that for like 5 years, really consistently. I give myself an A for consistency. I was very good at doing.
You were good at it.
I was a professional, and I know I'm making light of something that's, can be seen as quite dark. Because when I was living through this period, I was very depressed. I was very withdrawn, had a very low self-opinion. To be fair, I didn't love myself, and I know that's kind of cliche today. We hear that term thrown around, but that's the truth of it. I really I would avoid mirrors. I would avoid photos of me. I would avoid social settings because, I didn't like being with me. So how could I expect anybody else to like being around me?
Yeah.
At age 14, I remember this very distinctly. We're at the doctor's office. I'm with my mom. And the doctor says, Betty Ann, can I just have a conversation with you? Can I chat for you for a minute? And, she walks my mom outside the doctor's office, but of course leaves the doctor's office door ajar. And they're like right around the corner. Like I can hear everything.
Sure.
And I still think he did that intentionally. But, he says, Betty Ann, your son Dai, he's morbidly obese. And here's the thing. Morbidly and obese. I didn't know what either of those words meant, but I knew the way it was being delivered and just the context of the situation, it wasn't a good thing. And then so as I sort of expanded on that and started to really lean into that and appreciating how unhealthy I was, I got to a place where, I thought life might be easier not living it, and some of those darker thoughts I was entertaining. But here's the thing, and I'll sort of leave it at this. I got to a place where I was more afraid of the idea of staying as I was than I was of the idea of changing. Again, did I make a change based on fear? Yeah, I did. Okay. But I picked the path that I was less afraid of, which involved me doing things completely different that I had no idea what I was doing. But I knew that I couldn't stay where I was because it was just killing me in so many ways. And that set in motion a journey I went on for about 20 months of doing things very different than I had to achieve different results. And at the end of that, I had this new lifestyle and a new way of just living. But I got really good at working on the outside. I didn't really do any work on the inside, which, we can get there when we get there, but that set in motion a whole nother journey. But that's sort of where things began, and going through that transformation myself gets me excited to help others do the same.
Yeah, I think there's such a commonality with people who are on this self-development path of having started from a place where we are sort of at a rock bottom, like you said, if it took fear to get you to take action, so be it, because that was the impetus that you needed to get started. And I actually want to talk a little bit more about that fear component because you have an autoimmune disease, correct?
Right. Yes.
Yeah. Can you explain a little bit about that?
Yeah. And it's weird, right? But nowadays, just with what we do know, and we still know far less than what we know, sort of, I think it'd be the given forever. But when it comes to autoimmune disease, we recognize that a lot of us have them. And in varying degrees. And it's incredible when we look at this trend and this awareness, all both going up at the same time. You got to wonder, okay, is there something else going on here, right? Is it the food we're eating? Is it the air we're breathing? Is it the water we're drinking? Like, what is it? Is it the chronic stress that we're all like, oh my gosh? It's not like feeling like you're at rock bottom. It's like, no, I got this rock and it's pinning me down, right? It's like, and it can be challenging. And it was only just a number of years ago that they discovered, or at least got to a point where the doctors are like, we figured out what you don't have, which only leaves a handful of things that we're pretty sure it's one of these, for anyone that's dealing with any autoimmune complications and you're working within the medical system, I'll be the first to empathize with you how frustrating it can be. Okay, it really can be, because they don't know enough, and doctors today are very apprehensive of doing any misdiagnosis. So they'd rather just sort of be wishy-washy about their answers because of liability, right? Like the doctors have become so afraid of being sued or being taken out of context or misquoted that,
which is terrible.
It is terrible.
Out of the fear of misdiagnosing you, they sort of just leave you in this limbo state of like, what do I do?
Thank you, Jenny, because that's exactly it. And it's a very scary place to find ourselves. I feel like we're on an island, and it's like, well, what do we do? And fortunately, I had a hematologist that I was eventually paired with, once they'd sort of ruled out certain things. So what happened was I did my very first Tough Mudder. I was the first one that they did in Canada. And I was like, wow, this is cool. I've always wanted to do this. They're doing it in Canada. It's going to be in Whistler. It's just like my backyard. I'm in. And so, I did it. I was able to convince about 5 friends to come with me and do it at the same time. And we did it. And we felt so accomplished because we did it. And so that night, I'm chilling in the hot tub with my friends and we're just sort of trying to recover and recoup before we go for dinner. My legs throbbing. Like throbbing. Now, please note, I'm not a runner. Okay. I like short distances very fast, not long distances very slow. I just, and my thighs, they rub against each other because I have fairly large thighs. And so they rub against each other. And I had this rash form, and runner's rash, I found out later, is very common. And I didn't know any of this. And so I had this rash and I was in the hot tub. Anyways, next thing you know, I'm waking up in the middle of the night. And I'm literally in sweats, like I'm sweating profusely, really labored breathing, but I felt like things were shutting down. Ooh. Well, we waited till morning. My wife is like, you're going to the freaking hospital right now. Yeah. Because I couldn't even drive. I couldn't do anything. I was like literally shutting down. And so we drove to the hospital. They admitted me right away. Next thing you know, like literally after a couple of blood tests, doctors put me into an isolation room. And I'm like, what is going on here? We have no idea. And anyways, over the next 10 days, I was in an isolation ward by myself. When doctors would come in, they'd have to be all kitted out in garbs, like fully like hazmat outfits, right? And I'm still thinking like, what is going on here?
That's terrifying.
It was a rash. I just did a tough.
You're like, I have Ebola.
I know. Well, I mean, and our memories, our memories, we tend to look to the past, what we know, we try to fill in the blanks, and that's where fear often creeps in. And they were very kind. Like they were trying to give me as much as they could, but they just didn't know. And long and short of it, they finally figured out there was an antibiotic that I responded to very well, as well as they gave me something called Neupogen. And Neupogen is what we give to people typically that are going through various forms of chemotherapy. It's a very aggressive biological drug, but it's a drug that stimulates our immune system, in particular our bone marrow, to produce lots of the good stuff. Okay. In my case, neutrophils. Okay. So here's the thing. If anybody out there, you get a scrape on your arm, you get this little white stuff and it eventually scabs up. Well, that's good. That means your body's working. Right. You're defending yourself. You're neutralizing stuff before it can make any harm inside your body. I don't have that wall of defense.
Wow.
And I didn't know that, and the interesting thing to note is autoimmune neutropenia. My body produces lots of neutrophils, but my body kills it off quicker than I can produce it. Oh. So it creates this deficit. And as my hematologist loves to joke about, knowing how active I am and I love being outdoors, she's like, during this pandemic thing, you don't have any viral defense. You should probably just live in a bubble. I'm like, live in a bubble.
It's like the worst thing anyone could ever say to me.
I'm like, can you imagine me doing burpees in a bubble? No, I can't do that. So it was just me having to make certain choices, obviously, how I've been living my life throughout this pandemic, because I'm in a very high risk category. And wow. But that's sort of the long and short. Now I've been living with this, almost 10 years now. Almost 10 years I've been living with this, and I've learned to manage it very well with my lifestyle. So roughly, I'd say easily 90 percentile of most of the symptoms that people with an advanced case of what I'm dealing with, I don't get any of those symptoms. And they can't figure it out. The doctor's like, well, the only thing we can tell is because you're so healthy.
I was going to say, that's that you sort of defy whatever the norm is because you do take such good care of yourself. That makes sense.
What I've just caught you saying, and I say it too, notice how we've sort of normalized the other state.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like what I'm doing should be the normal.
You're right.
But no, but it's true. You and I are both the same way, and everyone's the same way. It's like the other is actually the normalized side, and that is where the problem lies. That is the issue at hand, is that we've just become so accepting of people's unhealth and current status of health. And we know it's not like it happened by accident. It doesn't happen overnight. It's like, I mean, come on. If we went in and bought one Big Mac and you ate that and you instantly put on 10 pounds, or all of a sudden started having heart palpitations immediately, would you go back for a second helping?
No,
probably not.
Yeah.
But it takes time for us to notice those negative effects. And because of that, we're not even aware the changes are happening.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So like back to this topic of fear, you have a very big reason to feel fear in your life, but you have chosen not to. So how has that decision been instrumental to your success? And what steps have you taken to just refuse to allow that to be a theme in your life?
Jenny, your questions are awesome. I just gotta say, I'm
Thank you. I put a lot of thought into them, so I appreciate that.
Well, for all of us, I think once we start to understand the basics of human motivation, right? Like, and when I say, like, I mean, go and look at like how Maslow, his hierarchy of needs. We can find these little pictures online, and it looks like a little pyramid, but it's a great representation of just how do we prioritize needs. And there's certain needs that we need just to function, like feel like we're safe, our lives aren't in jeopardy, to know that we have a roof over our head, that we're going to have food in our belly, like basic necessities to live, right? Once we take care of those, then we can start looking at other things like, maybe like earning an income, so I can earn some money, so I can have other things or take care of other people, right? But I can't have that unless I know where I'm sleeping at night and I know I'm going to get food in my belly, right? So we can start to see how other needs might be predicated on the requirement of having lower base needs met first. So needs are what? Motivations. We feel motivated to go after things. Fear is a weird thing, right? Because it is in a way something that we want to run away from. It's not like we say, hey, I want more fear, please. Like, I know. Where is fear? Let me go charge into the path of fear. I mean, that is bravery or courage or however you want to slate it. But I don't think we sign up for that freely and say, listen, give me more, please. Like it's sort of a happenstance based on circumstance. And so here it is, fear, right? And I recognize I avoid it like all of us do. And when it came to this idea of fear as it relates to my health, when I had kids, things really shifted for me as far as motivation. Because before I had kids, it was really just all about me. I'll be fair. Like this was my wife too. We co-create this space, but it's easy to create a lot of space for yourself when you don't have children. Once you have kids, it goes from being about me or maybe we to now them.
To like never being about you again.
Yeah, exactly. And so it shifted my motivation. So I became more fearful or concerned that I wouldn't be there to be the best support for them as they grew. And even later on, maybe my own grandkids. That became a real fear for me, and a concerning fear. So I already knew that there were certain health things that I wanted to focus on. I think we all do. Bottom line, I know at any given time, if you were to ask somebody, is there anything, as it relates to health right now that you'd like to improve on in your life? I've never met anybody that said, no, I'm great. Like
literally no one.
No.
Yeah.
So we have this awareness. But why is it we have to get to a place where a doctor says, you know what, if you don't make these changes now, you might die? But why is that? Why do we have to get to that place? And I think it's because the kind of changes we're talking about, they're so gradual. And because it comes at a time when we usually have so much else going on in our lives that it's just really hard, right? Like hard to even accept that.
Is it the not being able to see the immediate payoff for making the change that makes it like, we'll do that tomorrow or next month? Yeah.
I think you're right. I mean, why do people invest in cryptocurrencies, right? Well, it's a windfall instantly, overnight, instant results, right? Yeah. And it's we know people that invest, especially invest financially into things, like you don't want to chase the windfall, right? You don't want to chase the immediate results. Like it's usually pretty risky. So why do we do that with our health? Why are we attracted to the diet culture? Right? Why do we attract? Because it's all about time and ease.
Yeah.
Oh, it'd be way easier just to take a pill rather than actually go for a walk.
Yeah.
And So it's the convenience factor. And it's also a lot of misinformation. But at the end of the day, we just have to ask ourselves, what makes me feel good right now? But it's something that I'll never regret doing. And that's usually the position I wanted to invite people to take, or the perspective to take when you're considering, especially health changes, and especially if you're trying to avoid maybe certain health outcomes. And what I mean by that is, what are things, Jenny, that you would do health-wise that you would never regret? What do you think would be something that you would do for yourself and your health and well-being? And it's something that you would never regret making or taking the time for yourself to do it.
Maintaining a yoga practice.
Awesome.
When I fall off and then I get back to it, I'm like, why did I stop doing this? It's an absolutely crazy thing that I ever stopped doing it. Because the moment I do one yoga session, I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing.
Yes.
So yeah.
But you never regret that. In fact, you feel the opposite of regret.
Mm-hmm.
You feel gratitude that you did it, and you honored yourself to take that time or make the time for yourself. And there's lots of things that we can do every day that we know we'll never, ever, ever regret doing.
Mm-hmm.
I often joke with my clients. I'm like, listen, I'm going to ask you to eat certain things. I'm going to ask you to do certain things. I'm going to invite you to start looking and thinking about things differently. But here's the thing. If you ever get challenged by any of these things, send me a message and say, no, I think you're wrong, or I don't like doing this. It's a challenge, like whatever. Tell me that you regret doing it. And here's a prime example. Remember, I've never had a client message me and say, that salad with that cedar plank salmon you asked me to have for my lunch today? Wow, I really regret eating that, Dai. It's like, oh, that workout you really invited me and held me accountable to do this morning. I really regret working out this morning. Like, I've never heard that, and so why don't we do more of these things?
Yeah, that's such a great way of looking at it. I've heard it said the only workout you regret is the one you didn't do.
Yes. Perfect. Yeah. Yes, that's a great one.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. It also is evident to me that you got really clear on your why being your children and being around for them and your future grandbabies. Like, that became a motivating factor that sort of supersedes everything else.
Well, can I actually add something to that? Because it's really interesting that you say that, Jenny, because what I started as I became more in tune to that in myself, like really when I started to see my kids as being, when it came to my own accountability, now it had another level of depth, right? Yes. Like it was like, now I'm not only being accountable for myself, I'm being accountable for their future. So I could be my best version, be there to help them, be there to support them, and just be an engaged parent. I know I need my vitality, my health to do that.
Yeah.
And so it was just another layer of that commitment I had already made to myself. But it's good because now I don't just answer to myself. I also answer to them in a way, their future selves, if you will. And it is pretty cool when you start to see things that way.
Mm-hmm.
But where it's not as cool or maybe more challenging is this idea of purpose or meaning. I know the why, this why that you referred to. It's a lot of us, I think, get stuck because we don't know what that is, right? Mm-hmm. And without that direction or that clarity, we don't usually feel very confident about doing anything. And so what do we do in that situation? Well, that's where procrastination takes over, right? Like, that's so much easier to do everything but this thing because I'm not really clear on why am I doing that? What's the point of doing that? So I'll just do this thing over here, like Netflix and chill, right? And it's interesting though, but we find ourselves caught in this sort of cycle. And I guess, my question to you would be like, when you found yourself in one of these cycles, what have you found has worked for you to sort of break it or shake yourself out of it? What was one action that you can do that sort of gets you back into that sort of flow state or back into doing the things that are important to you? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, for me, it's really a lot about getting clear. And that's one of my favorite things. Like the course that I have right now is teaching clarity to my clients, because I think without that, everything sort of loses meaning. And if you know why you, or even just what you want out of the work that you do, what would equal satisfaction to you. When you know that with absolute clarity, the next step becomes evident, and you're not as tempted to procrastinate, which is incidentally something I wanted to ask you about. What do you advise your clients when they're caught in the swamp of procrastination? Because I think for multi-passionates, because we have so many ideas, it's very easy to be like, there's too much. I'm just going to sit here and watch Netflix.
You're right, though. It is true, right? Because we all face decision fatigue from time to time,
Yes.
and if you go into some of the research as well as some of what the gurus have put out there in their own literature and volumes of work, we realize that we only have so much energy every day to do the things that we want to do, and making decisions is one of those. And so I often say, if you've got some really hard conversations to have or some big decisions to make, it's probably best to do those as early in the day as possible. And there's even a book, it was called Eat the Frog. And, the whole point of that was what? If the hardest thing you had to do in a day was eat a frog, best to do it first thing in the morning, get it out of the way, right?
Yeah.
I always kind of like that analogy or metaphor, if you will. And I think for people, and when you're feeling in that place and you're feeling stuck with a lot of procrastination and you feel like you just don't have the motivation, I always say, peel back the layers of all the commitments that you have right now. And what I mean by that is we can't manage time, but we can manage how we commit our time. And I find that we are very much, at least in North America and other parts, probably more in first world countries, we do pride ourselves on the hustle and the bustle. We like, I remember catching myself just being so honored to wear my imaginary badge of I'm so busy. Just ask me, it was my badge, and yeah, I was burnt out a couple of times, and man, did it affect my immune system in a lot of ways. So, things all of a sudden became clear when I finally got the diagnosis and I was explained, oh, this is what's going on. I was like, oh, geez, I've been here a lot of times. It just happens to be the first time I was hospitalized for it, because a lot of us are faced with that right now. And so if we take a note of our own life and we look at how we're committing our energy on the day to day, we'll probably realize that we're committing our energy to a lot of things that don't provide us with any joy, nor does it provide us with any happiness, and especially doesn't provide us with any fulfillment. And gosh, we if you spend a lot of time every day doing things that make you feel the opposite of that, no wonder procrastination is such a nice break, right?
Yeah.
Like it's a break from life. Why? Because I'm like, I've just wasted all my energy doing things that really aren't that important, but I think they're important, so I better do them. But I do them, and then I feel more tired, and I want to avoid my life. It's like, intervention time. And so take control of your calendar, prioritize time for yourself, your self-care first. After that, prioritize family. And then after that, work in the work commitments. But if you block all that in your calendar, you're going to see what space is left after all that's been committed to. You're going to realize, wow, my calendar is really, really full.
Yeah. It's so interesting you would say this, because I just did this exercise this week where I made like my calendar for the week and the non-negotiables. Yes. And these are the leftover spots. So if you want some time with me, or if this project needs my attention, it goes in the leftover spots. And when they're gone, they're gone.
I love it. But that's good. You've honored yourself. You've honored your energy, but you've also recognized that if you overcommit that, that's where things go the wrong direction, right? Like, and I know this too, but, and please, I just full disclosure, I'm still working on this too. There comes those weeks where that FOMO, which we all get, that fear of missing, oh my gosh, there's a really cool opportunity here. I don't want to miss out on that. I better say, well, do I have the time? Well, technically I got the time there, but that would normally be where I would go in for my walk with my wife.
Right.
Well, geez, this is a really big deal, though. I don't know if I want to miss it, and this is how it starts. We start to negotiate with ourselves on how to rejig our program so we can say yes to everything. But that is usually the biggest problem, right?
Yes.
Because we can't say yes to everything. And there actually is. And this is where I stress this the most with clients and non-clients and just anybody. Get really good and get okay with saying no. Right. And no, period. Okay. Like, just so you know, the sentence ends after the one word, no. You do not have to explain yourself. Like, you don't listen, I'm Canadian. All right. And yeah, we apologize.
I know you guys are so nice. You're so nice. You have to give a reason why there's a no, right?
That's all the time. It is so bad. Like, we are so heavily conditioned culturally to do that. It's embarrassing. Okay. But you don't have to explain yourself. A no is a no. And you can be polite and you can be kind in how you deliver the no, but remember, by saying no, you do say yes to something later.
Yes.
And
That is such an
yes,
important, like,
oh,
just know that for yourself, that with every
yeah,
no, you're saying yes to something else that
yes.
is probably infinitely more fulfilling.
When we say something's a non-negotiable, treat it like a non-negotiable.
Exactly.
Like
Yes.
it's amazing how we will compromise on our non-negotiables. And I can say this because I've done it. Okay.
Yeah. When, I
And
mean, the exercise of making my calendar this week was because I have been drowning in overwhelm. And that's, I teach people how to not drown in overwhelm. So I was like, all right, I am not walking the talk right now. So and sitting down and being like, this is non-negotiable.
Jenny, I think it's such a beautiful exercise for you to share and work people through, because I think it's an exercise that once people do it and they really adopt it as a regular practice, you start to feel more optimistic about the week, the time. Like our relationship with time and how it plays out in our own lives, we start to feel better about it, because we start to feel like, and I hate to say like we have control of time, but we have control of our calendar and our commitments. We know what we've committed to, but the cool thing is at the beginning of every week, I know when I'm having my personal time every single day.
Yeah.
It's there, it's committed to. Do I negotiate on that? Heck no, I don't. That is my time for me. And I honor that. And it's okay, because every time I've said no to somebody, especially if it's something that would pop up during that window, I let them know, you know what? Thank you. It's a no right now. And here's why, if you care, because I'd like to reschedule, but I just want to let you know, I'm never available at this time during these days, and here's why. And I've never had anybody say, oh, geez, that's kind of rude.
You're such a jerk.
No, I've never had that. And in fact, a lot of people have messaged me saying, you know what? I appreciate that you do that. I'm going to start doing that too.
You saying that felt like a warm snuggly blanket for me. I was like, oh, like it's like you saying it gave me permission, and hopefully is giving my listeners permission too, to just like make that a non-negotiable every day and know that it's there and you have it to look forward to. This episode is brought to you by the Multi-Passionate Master Plan. Your dream job is closer than you realize. Imagine waking up each morning excited to start your day. Imagine being so engaged in your work that you forget to take breaks and only wrench yourself away when nature starts calling loudly. If you've ever lost time working on something you truly love, you know what it feels like to do the work you were put here to do. And it's a far cry from that feeling of dread you get at the beginning of your work week now. If you're ready to take the plunge into entrepreneurship, but don't know which of your 1,000 ideas to choose or where to begin once you've chosen, the Multi-Passionate Master Plan is for you. In this 6-week group coaching program designed with squirrel brain creators in mind, you will uncover your $1 million idea and create a roadmap that eliminates everything standing in your way. And if you jump on the waitlist today, you'll get a special offer for 40% off the program cost when I open the doors next month. So is it finally time to take action? Because the only regret I hear from my entrepreneur friends time and time again is I wish I had done it sooner. If you don't want that to be you, pause this podcast, head over to jennyo'connor.com/masterplan and jump on the waitlist today.
Steve Jobs has a beautiful speech that he did. It was actually a graduation address for Stanford University. And I think it was like 2006, maybe 2005. It was like during his first period of remission. So, we all know his story. And if you don't know, he eventually succumbed to pancreatic cancer. But the first time around, when he was first diagnosed with that, obviously, it creates a lot of fear, a lot of concern for everyone connected to that, but especially for Mr. Jobs. It's mortality is facing you, staring you right in the eyes, and you're faced with a life-altering situation. He shares about this situation. Now, keep in mind during the speech, he's talking to this graduation group, right? This class of graduates that are about to go out and embark in their own lives in this next big chapter and journey. And so he's very optimistic, but he also provides some really interesting observations from the perspective as a man that definitely was committed to work, right?
Yeah.
You talk work-life balance. I mean, it was just work, right?
Yeah.
And because that was his passion, that was his mission, that was his fulfillment was all from that. And I'm not here to knock that. That's fine. But it's interesting to see that all of a sudden he has this life-altering experience and how it can shift some of his subtle practices.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't think we have to wait to get to that same sort of critical incident in our own lives to take the learning and the message and start to apply it now.
Mm-hmm.
There was one thing that he shared, and this is what I know that you probably already do this just based on what you just shared with me. And I hope that everybody does this. And if you don't, here's something that I invite you to start doing. So Mr. Steve Jobs described that every morning as he would prepare to go about and do his day, he would look himself in the mirror as he's getting ready, and he'd ask himself a simple question. And the question that he would ask every morning, looking at himself as he's getting ready to go out and do his day, is, if today was the last day I had to live, would I be about to do what I'm about to do today?
Oh my God.
And this is what he said. And he said, if my answer to myself was no more than a couple days in a row, I knew it was time to make some big changes.
Mm.
Like that mindfulness, that awareness to just be able to ask ourselves a quick question for clarity's purposes, just like what you were talking about. Like that's the best thing about questions. Questions are really just there to help us discover the answer or discover the path, to get the clarity so we can make a decision or take an action. And with that awareness, it's powerful, right? Because then you can start to feel like you have control over what's going to happen next.
Yeah.
And create that intentionality and live into that space rather than feeling like, oh, I'm sort of just being pulled along, And so that was something that I just, you reminded me of when you were sharing there, Jenny. And I just thought that it might be something that you want to share out. Is that link to it? It's on YouTube. I don't know where it is, but Steve Jobs, Stanford Address. It's great.
I have read the biography of him, but I have never heard that before. And it like made me emotional because I wonder how often I would answer no to that question. I'm going to ask myself every day. So thank you so much for sharing that. Oh my gosh. So real quick, I have to ask you about this. I want to circle back to the fear thing again for a second, because you said earlier in this interview that you run away from it, as we are wont to do, but also you don't. Didn't you just recently do your first stand-up set?
Oh man. Yeah. Talk about fear.
Okay. So I have to tell you I run towards fear. I've trained myself now to run towards fear because I lived in fear for so long. And this is the only way I know to counter that. However, stand-up terrifies me. Like there's nothing I would less rather do. I am so amazed by people like you who are like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm going to do it anyway. So tell me about it. How was it? Like, oh God, I'm sweating just talking about it.
Believe me, you're making me sweat by having to go back down memory lane. No, but just no, in all sincerity, it was an amazing experience. Now that I can reflect on it.
Yeah, now that you're out of it, right?
When you're going through it, it's pretty intimidating. But here's the thing. I like you, I recognize that fear is not necessarily always a bad thing, right? Like of course, if there's fear of survival, the fear of life, like I see a rattlesnake, I'm running. Okay. Like,
right, sure.
I get it. That's called self-preservation.
Yes.
But if it's more of that psychological, emotional fear that's based on lack of confidence or knowledge in myself, please take note of this, people, because I know that's really where it comes from. Like when we're afraid of something, it's just because we're afraid of the unknown. I don't know what might happen if I say yes to this, or if I try this, or I don't think I could do this because I've never done it before. So we make up all these potential doomsday scenarios in our head, of which most of them never happen. But here's the thing. I've recognized that fear is not always a bad thing, and that by embracing it and moving through it, I learn a couple things. And I often will come out the other side feeling very fulfilled and accomplished and proud of myself. And I like that feeling. Yeah. Because it reminds me that, man, I can do hard stuff and I can survive it, like it's resiliency. We all got it. It's in our DNA. Like, my goodness, there's 8 billion of us on this freaking planet. Like, that didn't happen by chance. Like, we're resilient. Yeah. We have climate change experts say we're too resilient, but again, another conversation. but with the fear thing, stand-up was really challenging because I'd always said, I originally started as someone that's socially, I deal with social anxiety. Okay. And I work as an extrovert. I choose to do that.
I've heard you say in other interviews that you're introverted, which is so counter to your nature right now, but that's really interesting because I'm the same way.
I'll need a nap after this, just so you know.
Okay.
Totally I'm just straight up. Okay. Like I choose to work as an extrovert because I have a message. I have something I want to share and impart in people's lives. And I know the only way to do that is to get out there and share the message, to share conversations, to connect with people where they're at. And does it make me uncomfortable? Well, yeah. Does it get a little bit easier the more I do it? Yeah, it does. Yeah. But does it get rid of the fear? No, it doesn't. It's still there. My hands still shake. I still get a little bit of sweat on my palms. My heart rate elevates. Like, it's still there. But I've learned to channel it in a positive way. Because I've gone through this process a few times in my life. We all have. Every single person that's listening to this right now, I know you've dealt with something scary before. You've gotten through it. You come out the other side and been like, wow, I did that. Wow, I guess I can learn to do stuff. Lock that in, okay? Because that is repeatable and duplicatable. And you have a skill to learn in you. So I had to convince myself of this, okay? And remind myself of this, because I was telling people that there's one thing in my life I don't think I would ever do. And that would be stand-up comedy. And then I found myself coaching a new client, and this particular client was sharing a lot of his fears and his concerns in areas that have been quite, I don't like using the term crippling, but I think it makes sense for the context of this conversation, because he was literally, it's like he didn't have full functionality when it came to certain things that he was intimidated by. Like, very confident human being, but under certain circumstances, zero confidence. And it affected him quite a bit. And here I am trying to support him and talk him through this and help him reframe things to be in a more positive light. And yet I found myself feeling rather hypocritical, because I knew in the back of my mind, I feel the way about stand-up comedy, the way he's describing his fear right now. And I was like, you know what? I got to set an example. I got to be a role model here. I feel called to just challenge myself to do this. And I found a course that was in person. They did in-person workshop format once a week for 6 weeks. And at the end of that 6 weeks, there'd be a showcase where these new comedians would have an opportunity to deliver a 5-minute set in front of an audience. So I was like, all right, I'm in, I'll do it. And, it felt great for the first few weeks, because it's like, it doesn't really quite feel real. You're in front of just a bunch of other people that are all trying to learn just like you, are all just as afraid as you. And you're just figuring it out. And then, week 4 comes, and it's like, oh my gosh, we're 2 weeks out. Oh, week 5, next week. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
I wouldn't have slept for that whole week.
I did. The last 2 weeks, I slept very little. I'll be honest. My REM, very low, very poor. My HRV ratings, my heart rate variability, very poor. For people that don't know what that is, look it up. Anyways, I was not in a good place, but I knew it was something I wanted to do. And I remembered an exercise that I learned from Tim Ferriss. And if you've had an opportunity to see one of his TED Talks, he talks about an exercise called fear setting. And it's this activity of trying to rationalize our fear, all right, or work through it logically. He talks a lot about stoicism and this idea of sort of separating our emotion from our logical system, and this idea of trying to make decisions that's not influenced heavily by emotion. And so to do that, we got to sort of start to ask ourselves, well, what's the worst thing that can happen? What's the worst thing that can happen? Okay, I go up and I do the stand-up. What's the worst thing that can happen? And when I started to rationalize, I was like, you know what? I'm not going to die. I'm not going to drop dead on stage. No, I mean, if that happened, do I really care? Well, no, I won't know anything different. It's done. It's done. So what is really
a good argument?
It is. I'm like, whatever. I die. I'm not going to worry about it. Like, whatever. It'll probably go viral. That'd be pretty good. Right? No, but seriously, like I was like, that's silly. I don't think that will happen. If it does, whatever. But what really am I afraid of here? And I started thinking, I was like, well, maybe nobody will laugh.
Yeah. Or you get laughed off the stage, which is the same thing in my mind. Like, everyone's just like,
at least I got to laugh. I feel a little bit better about that. At least I got to laugh. I mean, it's laughing at me, not with me, or but I would take that over the silence.
Right.
Because trust me, when you're up there and it's silent, it's really scary.
Brutal.
But fortunately the lights are really big, and so you can't see anybody outside of the front row. But still, I made sure that I had friendly faces in the front row. And the cool thing is, if you do this with the coach and you do it in this kind of a format, and every city's got these different types of groups that offer these types of courses. So I encourage you, go sign up for one, make the commitment, go through the process, and they're really good. The instructor, and this is the coolest thing about Janice, and it's called Laughter 101, right? And which is a great name. It's good. And but her focus is to help you get laughs. Like, that's her goal. The results she was coaching me for. So she understands how to write jokes. She understands how to deliver punchlines, and so she coached us and mentored us through that period. So by the time I got there, it was okay. Was I nervous? Did I forget some of my stuff? Yeah. Did I feel great when I finished? Not immediately, but within the hour after my, adrenaline subsided and I was able to just reflect. And after talking to people after the show who came up and said, that was really good, like getting some positive feedback.
Yeah.
I realized like, wow. And I'll tell you, I never felt so proud.
I bet.
Like, yeah.
So crazy. It's safe to say it was scarier to do that than to do a TED Talk.
It was.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because that's also very scary to me, but something I can see myself doing. So I was curious if you had to weigh them, you would say that the stand-up was definitely scarier.
Only because stand-up was way outside of my experience world, like my world of experience, because I'd never done anything like that. But I've been speaking professionally for about 10 years before I did my TED Talk.
Okay. All right. So that was kind of old hat.
Well, it was. Now, to be perfectly fair, and for anybody that is familiar with the TED stage, like those talks are heavily curated, but also heavily edited. Like they are. Like I went through so many revisions because they give you coaching, they give you support, but you also have to memorize it.
Yeah.
Like, and I've never been someone to memorize anything. So even working as a professional speaker, even to today, if someone asked me to come and speak or give a keynote, you'll never get the same keynote twice.
Wow.
I'll talk about similar ideas and concepts, but it's more like a very big conversation with an audience, and where this was very scripted. And for me, that was actually the scary part.
Interesting.
Because as soon as you put the pressure on you to deliver something in a certain way, and it has to be delivered that way, that is a whole lot of pressure. And for anybody that suffers with that perfectionist brain, which I do, and I try
just like my entire audience.
Yes. Yeah. So and I'm telling you right now, TED Talk will probably be more intimidating than stand up for you. And it's only because the way that yes, I had 3.5 months before I took the stage from the time I started with them. So there was plenty of time there, but that didn't matter. It still came time to deliver the talk. You got one go, and that pressure to deliver it just the right way. Many times during rehearsal, and even they give us, we went around to different Toastmasters groups where they give us opportunities to deliver, and they would give us feedback on the talk.
Wow.
And I got to do that at 3 different clubs. And there was a couple times where I did it and I'd forget one word, or I'd say that word out of order. And all of a sudden I'd find myself getting stuck because I'm like, oh my God, I just screwed that up. I screwed that up. So meanwhile, I know what the next sentence is, but I'm thinking about the sentence I just screwed up.
Yep.
And that's why I'm saying like that level of scripting, like it totally, it was hard. It was really hard. Okay? But it worked out in the end. But I'm just being honest. I just want people to know it's not as easy really as it looks.
Good. No. And I mean, I definitely, it's funny because my mom is the person in my ear that's like, you should give a TED Talk. You should give a TED Talk. And I'm like, that sounds so scary, but I still think, I still think stand-up sounds way scarier. And I'm just mad impressed that you just tackled both of those things like a champ. Yeah, really.
I'll let you know. Like in July, I'm doing stand up again, so I'm going to.
Good for you.
Doing another showcase. I wanted to prove to myself it wasn't a one-shot wonder.
Wow.
So I am a glutton for punishment a little bit, and
clearly you are.
It is a little bit less intimidating doing it for a second time, but it's still intimidating. I'll be honest. But I just wanted to share that it's not like I do these things and I want to do it again, and that's what I encourage everybody to do. It's like,
I think that's what is, I think that's what's so, there's a liberating feeling when you do something that scares the heck out of you and then nothing, and the sky doesn't fall and you don't die. And you're like, look at me, I can do that again. That's sort of what has become like, it's almost a little bit of the like adrenaline junkie in me. That's like, I chase after scary things because then I prove to myself how capable I am. Correct. So I hear you kind of having the same reaction to your experiences as well.
And we all got that, I think, and believe me, there's different seasons in our lives to do this kind of work, for ourselves. Like, would I do it all year round? No, I think that would be really exhausting because I definitely find that my nervous system is tweaked. Like I'm operating high, like as you said, adrenaline, right? And you can only sustain that for so long. And so it's just recognizing that ebb and flow of our lives and our energy and what's needed versus what's not, and honoring ourselves. And I'm still sort of figuring that out. But the last couple of years, that's been a big focus of mine, especially with just the world we found ourselves living within. Like I found myself constantly thinking about the things I couldn't do anymore. Oh, restriction this, restriction that, can't travel here, can't travel there. Like you find yourself getting caught up in all the things that just you can't do anymore. And that was awful. And so, my wife and I really took some time to focus. Well, okay, we can't do those things. Let's not worry about those. What can we do with our time right now? And
this from the guy who was told to live in a bubble. No,
I know. Well, it's okay. I can do a lot from a bubble.
I feel like you've really made the most of it, which is just wildly impressive. So I want, out of respect for your time, I could keep you forever. This has been an illuminating conversation. It's been so fun. Is there anything else that you would like to share before you tell my audience how they can find out more about you, where they can go listen to your TED Talk, all of that good stuff?
Well, if there's one thing to say is just, what is that one thing? The one thing that you've been thinking about doing, you've pondered it, maybe you've had dreams about it. And it's one of those things that's sort of a recurring want or desire. Because I think we all have those. It's those things that maybe it goes away for a year and then it comes back, but it's this kind of a recurring feeling, that there's something that you're meant to be doing or trying. I just want to invite anybody that's got that and you are aware of that in you, just take one extra step closer to it. Now just do one thing to bring you one step closer to actually starting to realize that, because I'll tell you, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years from now, if you're looking back and you're thinking about your life and the things that you've done and the things that you haven't done, the things that you feel bad about are always the things that you knew that you could have done, but you just never got yourself to a place to say yes. Do it. Just do that one thing, because what is the worst that can happen?
Yep.
What is the worst? To be fair, I mean, obviously, if you're thinking about skydiving, well, maybe this is the bad example, but
that is a bad example.
But you know what I mean? Like within reason, there's just so many things that I think can unlock a lot of the potential that's already in us, but we don't give ourselves a space to just figure out how to unlock that, to just try new things, meet new people, have new experiences, and really live life the way that we have the potential to live it. Yes. And that's my invitation. It's an invitation only. And I love to hear about people that are challenging themselves to do hard things that they didn't think they could do before. That's a great way. Reach out to me on social. I'm easy to find. It's just Dai Manuel at everything. Dai Manuel, Manuel. If you can spell it, you'll find me. And let's have a conversation. Just tell me, hey, I heard you and Jenny talking about this. This is the fear I'm challenging right now. Great. Let's have a convo, yes. And, but that's it, like that would be what I'd have there to invite others to consider,
Absolutely. So it's daimanuel.com. It's at Dai Manuel on Instagram, all that. You're on LinkedIn too, right?
You bet. You bet. Yeah.
All right,
I love the LinkedIn. So yeah, definitely connect with me there.
Amazing. Yeah. I'm going to drop all of those links in the show notes. So just to make it extra easy for people to find you, but this has been so much fun. Thank you so much for being here. I'm glad we finally made it happen. And likewise. I am so grateful that you're willing to share your wisdom with me today.
Jenny, thank you for making it easy and making it fun, but also for just creating a space like this. So many of us, like when I often think back to even 10, 15 years ago, I wish we had more resources like this.
Right.
And so I just want to say thank you, because I look at my kids, they're late teens, about to be 20-year-old. These are the things that are going to help them.
Absolutely.
So just thank you for creating this and putting it out to the world. I really feel honored to be here. So thank you.
Yeah, you're so welcome. And thank you. And I really look forward to staying connected with you and seeing all of the great work that you're doing out in the world.
Thank you. It's awesome.
All right. Take care of yourself. I'll talk to you soon. So did you guys love that? Dai is so high energy and positive and has such a feel-good vibe. And there were so many nuggets of wisdom in that episode. I hope that you enjoyed it as much as I did. If you did find this content valuable, I would be so grateful to you if you would rate and review the show so that other multi-passionates like you can hear these important messages about how to make a living from their passions. More people doing what they love equals a better world overall. I would also really love to hear from you guys. Join me on the socials at Your Creative Fairy Godmother and shoot me a DM on Instagram anytime. If you want to ask a question or get feedback or suggest an episode topic, whatever you want, I'm here for you. And until next time, remember, one of the greatest discoveries we can make, one of our great surprises, is to find that we can do what we were afraid we couldn't. Now get on out there and do the thing.